Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. Recently, the former president, Donald J. Trump, was asked whether in the 2024 race he was leaning toward a female running mate, given that now 2 of the 3 most probable female Veep choices are said to be female. And President Trump said the following: I like the concept of female vice president, but we're going to pick the best. But I do like the concept, yes. He said, I like the concept of female vice president. This casts us back 8 years in time, 8 years to the 2016 campaign when President Trump said the following. Actually, he said it all throughout the campaign trail, and then he said it the first year in the White House when he was getting ready to give us Amy Coney Barrett. This is what he said.
It will be a woman, a very talented, very brilliant woman.
And he went on to extol the traits of brilliant, talented women who he had set aside. He was using identitarian politics, the worst sort, even worse than ethnic identitarian politics, or sexual identitarian politics, because whereas you'd think black, white, yellow, pink, orange, brown, the races are all capable, assuming that they're male, of doing the same things in theory, which with different demographical assumptions about the likeliness of said things being actually in the competence of the person. But as conservatives, that is to say as Christians, I'm not even just talking as Catholics, as Christians, we reject the very possibility of the competence of, say, a woman to do the job of politics or, let's just say Parliament, Congress, President, Supreme Court Justice. And there are several moral reasons why we reject this. One, we reject it because it's not in the specific difference of a woman to do such things. Secondly, because of the opportunity cost left in the home place. And thirdly, because then the policy agenda will suffer. Conservatives always choose, today's show we're going to talk about this, to only discuss the third. Well, I don't like Nikki Haley, probably for the first 2 reasons, which we'll mostly talk about as one. But I'm just going to talk about the bad policy agenda that most women have, but I don't want to emphasize the fact that most women will have it. I read this LifeSite News article that was up yesterday. Will Trump ask Nikki Haley to be his running mate? Not if America First conservatives get their way. It goes like this. Talk of Nikki Haley becoming Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate ended as quickly as it began. In December, social media was abuzz over news that Trump was asking those closest to him what they thought about Haley, his one-time ambassador to the UN. Remember, Trump gave us Nikki Haley, and Trump gave Nikki Haley her career, more or less. He took the longest leap in it for her. Thank you, Trump. Not. That possibility, LifeSite continues, didn't last more than a few days, nor was it all that serious. Politico reports that all kinds of Trump allies, MAGA media influencers, and even his son are sending the Republican frontrunner the message, no, stop. Like Buckley saying conservatives must stand athwart history and yell, halt. Among those who have made their opposition to the 2-term South Carolina governor, include Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, and Donald Trump Jr. Now, Representative Matt Gaetz has similarly told Newsweek that Nikki Haley, according to this LifeSite article, I'm most closely aligned of all the online weblogs with LifeSite, that Nikki Haley as VP would be an establishment neocon fantasy and a MAGA nightmare. Another voice speaking out against Haley is former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. As reported by Politico, Carlson previously told podcaster Tim Pool that he would, quote, advocate against a Trump-Haley ticket as strongly as I could, and that he has. He went on to do it in typical Tucker way, comic, personable, strong. And I'm not going to read you all the Carlson quotes. Carlson notes that the Democratic Party is stuck with two fatally unpopular candidates, and therefore their only option at this point is to run a Republican who has the same views as Biden and Kamala Harris. So we're talking about policy agenda. Remember what I said at the top. Policy agenda is the reason you shouldn't vote for female candidates. Carlson then noted that Reid Hoffman, who Vox has called one of the biggest fundraisers in the Democrat Party, is helping Haley's campaign. Last year, Hoffman donated blah, 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 blah to the super PAC. He gave $1 million to blah, 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 pro-abortion, and Haley's supported by him, blah, blah, blah. Carlson also pointed out that Hoffman was friends with Epstein and blah, blah, blah. Carlson further theorized that the only way Haley could become the GOP nominee is if Republican voters have no one else to vote for. So they go through and they recount for you why Nikki Haley's policy positions are bad. It boils down to, and this is intoned most explicitly by Tucker Carlson, her support for lax immigration laws. That's bad. Climate ideology is bad, as well as their calls to end anonymity on social media and tireless backing of Ukraine. These all make her an enemy of America First conservatism. You know what's lacking from this list? Those are all policy agendas that any male politician might have, and you'd say, yeah, that's bad. We had to do X minutes of research, or maybe X hours of research to gather these things. Most people remember a lot of them. And you'd say, if this was a male candidate, well, that's bad. I spent, 45 minutes or an hour 45 researching this to write this article for LifeSite News, which is an excellent outfit, and I like it. And I quote from it often. But I'm wondering why spend the 45 minutes or the hour 45 minutes or the 3 hours or whatever time externality it was to make a weaker argument against her candidacy and the candidacy, at least as Veep, of all of those like it. Why do we have President Trump, a supposed conservative, saying things like,
it will be a woman, a very talented, very brilliant woman.
I remember months before this on the campaign trail in, I think, New Hampshire, where he said, who wants to see a woman? And they had the Marxist cries for women coming from the throats of Republicans. So Nikki Haley shouldn't be vice president because of her views on all of these issues that a vice president has no control over. Immigration, COVID, climate, and other things. Her calls to end anonymity on social media, I don't really care about that. It was a stupid way she intoned it, but that's more, again, because of who she is than what it stands for. You could make the same claim and make it semi-defensible, but it's the womanishness behind all these policy agendas that make them bad, not the other way around. I mean, I'm not saying that I would back Ukraine or I would support a male politician who supports Ukraine, or that the same pace climate ideology, same pace lax immigration laws. No, these things are bad because they're bad, but they're not the most bad. What about the argument, parish orphans and retrogrades? This is what today's show is going to be about. That it's immoral to vote for Nikki Haley or any of the other front-running Veep candidates, running mate candidates for Trump, because they're female. Isn't that what we all have in mind? Even moderate conservatives have that in mind, because we've never had a female president. Okay, now we have had a female vice president. We currently have one. But Republicans have never won with one. Now, John McCain ran with Sarah Palin, and it's been experimented with ever since by Republicans. Demographical nightmare. But what about the argument that it's immoral to vote for a woman and only a communist party who hates the family would run one, would run a woman? Do you think it's wrong to make the strongest claim against a bad suggestion? Because the strongest claim against the bad suggestion of Nikki Haley or Kristi Noem, they're both from the Carolinas and the Dakotas, South Dakota, South Carolina. The best, strongest, most moral, and most effective claim is don't vote for them because they're women. You know who makes this claim? All of the popes of the 20th century. Women in parliament are outside their proper sphere, and their position there would be the desperation and ruin of society. What about that argument? I know people are going to say that I'm like a clanging cymbal, a banging bass drum that just doesn't stop on this issue. But I want to make a slightly more nuanced argument than I made in applying the case for patriarchy and ask your husband to the political process and the way it works in absurd post-fall America. That's what we're going to do today. What about the argument of our favorite, one of our very favorite popes, probably our favorite in the 20th century, Pius X, that it's immoral to vote for a woman because she's a woman. Woman in parliament, that the equivalent is Congress, so we've already made this fatal error, are outside their proper sphere, and their position there would be the desperation and ruin of society. Catholics just don't take Catholicism seriously, and I'm not talking about Pope Francis. I've done a bunch of shows on Pope Francis of late. I'm talking about trad Catholics, conservative Catholics. Do any conservatives, or Protestant or Orthodox included, believe this? Yeah, you see some of it on Twitter, but today's show, we're going to get to a couple call-outs, and then we're going to get to the main content. There are those of us who believe it, so why is it blocked out from the mainstream? And even something as off the mainstream, off Broadway, is LifeSite News as the number one reason to not vote for it. Well, LifeSite News is always supporting traditional 20th century popes, Leo the 13th, Pius the 10th. You'll jump back 20 more years, you'll get Pius the 9th being quoted. The Society of Pius the 10th has received an uncommonly high portion of support from LifeSite News. You're not going to find someone more neutral on the SSPX issue than me, and I've said this for 5 years. People confuse my view with that of my brothers, and it's stupid. You have to look to the first part of the name. That's called a first name, people. I'm totally neutral on SSPX, but LifeSite News and 1 Peter 5 and Crisis Magazine have run a bunch, article after article supporting the Society of Pope Pius X. I don't think this is the end of the world. I don't think it's wise. I don't think it's the end of the world. I understand it. And I don't really have a position one way or the other. But the point is, our big hero as conservative Catholics is supposedly Pius X. And he is absolutely clear that the reason you shouldn't vote for Nikki Haley applies to Kristi Noem, applies to Marjorie Taylor Greene, applies to whoever. And she was popular 2 years ago. She's fallen out of favor. Not all. Most of these women cheat because fundamentally what they're doing is gender dysphoric, creating all kinds of testosterone. Look up any of the women I've talked about. I'm not sure who's done what. The odds are you're going to find a cheater. She's already abandoned the home. Why not just make the trifecta complete? You abandon the home, you go into the public sphere, just do the third part. Cheat, and most of them do. Pope Pius X, who I thought is our North Star, or our pole star. Same difference. I thought he's our big hero. He said women in parliament are outside the proper sphere, and their position there would be the desperation and ruin of society. Now, I get it why Fox News, who isn't a conservative outlet, they're run by the same people that CNN and MSNBC are. They literally are. But what about like LifeSite News, my favorite weblog to go to? They won't make this argument. Fox News will say, well, we have to get Trump through the most popular means possible. LifeSite News would say that to me if I said, hey, why did you run this whole article saying don't vote for Joseph Stalin because he uses the wrong kind of wash cycle on his blankets? It's like, how about don't vote for Stalin for the most pressing and most compelling moral reasons? It will be a communist genocide, collectivist command economy that destroys us all. That's you hit people with your best stuff first. Why LifeSite News? Then they'll hit you with something like the Fox News. Well, we have to be popular. You didn't care about being popular when it came to quoting the Society of St. Pius X, right? That's not popular to stand up for SSPX. I don't care. I take unpopular positions all the time. I have no problem with that. I have zero issue with a rag or a weblog or a podcaster or even a priest saying, look, I know this is unpopular, but I support it. That's kind of what we do here. Without giving into the contrarian spirit where you're always supporting unpopular causes, qua unpopular. If you think the unpopular cause is right, if you guys in my audience attend SSPX chapels, I don't have a big issue with it. Now, I'll make you a mild counter argument, but you're not going to find someone that's more zero sum close to neutral on the issue. I just don't think it's an important issue. The wider church is what matters. We need to fix the wider church, and we need to, I say stay there. But I don't really care. But the point is, outfits like Crisis, 1 Peter 5, LifeSite News, who do like to have some reportage coverage on the 2024 election cycle, because it's relevant. Why are they hitting you now all of a sudden with the expediency argument? Well, it's not expedient to use the strongest argument. It's always expedient to use the strongest argument. So Fox News, MSNBC, whatever, Breitbart, it used to be Drudge Report. I'm just trying to think of sort of more mainstream outfits, Daily Wire, Tucker Carlson. The Daily Wire's been strong, uncharacteristically strong on the feminism issue. I got to give them credit. All of them are like, well, it's not expedient to tell women, that them being in Congress is the ruin of society. Well, but I thought you loved Pius X. Okay, whatever. Don't expect that from guys that big. They got that big for a reason. They got that big by compromising on principles. And to the man, you get big by compromising on principles. Though I got to give it to Daily Wire. On that issue, they've been uncommonly strong through Walsh and Knowles. The Catholics have really been, and even Clavin. But the point is, the expediency argument is closed to outfits that have been like, well, we're going to support these little, Sandinista guerrillas. That's what the SSPX is. It's the equivalent of Sandinista guerrillas who are doing good stuff. They stand for good cultural stuff. You're just, this isn't really allowed, whatever. I don't care about that issue. And if you go, there are bigger problems in the world. I have no serious problem with it. I'm not one of these ones that back them. I'm not one of these ones that nip at their heels. I'm literally neutral on it. My point is, don't hit me with the expediency argument because it's disingenuous. The best way to attack Nikki Haley is by saying, well, it's immoral to vote for a woman. I just read you Pope Pius X. Throughout the show, I'll read you some more. Do any conservatives, and by conservatives I mean real Christians in America. I hesitate to call Protestants real Christians, but they are Trinitarian at the end of the day. The Catechism and Canon Law says this. Protestants, Orthodox, Catholics, one that take their faith seriously. This is what I mean by conservatives. I'm not talking about secular conservatives because I don't count them as fully conservative. I'm not talking about other Western faiths, whatever. They're not conservative in the American tradition. Real Christians, one of the three types of true Christians. Do they believe what they say? because the way this Lifesite article should have been written is don't vote for Nikki Haley. This would be bad. It's immoral to vote for her because she's woman, because she's female. And if she's female, then she's going to necessarily have trouble processing all these issues. She's going to be a natural-born moderate. That's why it's the ruin of society. Now, people are asking, what about queens? I don't know. Pius X didn't address queens. I'm just telling you the facts, people. This is what I do, and I'm going to read you all the other 20th century popes saying in Parliament or outside the home. Queens aren't necessarily outside the home that much, but I don't care, okay? We're talking about American politics. Focus. I'm not trying to be bellicose here, but just focus on the issue. This is what happens to American conservatives. This is why we can't have nice things. When I want to go microscopic, people will go macroscopic. When I want to go macroscopic, people will be like, let's go microscopic. Don't be contrarian. Just stick with the show. Okay, first off, I want to say, it's funny. I'm being all bellicose like this on a Saturday afternoon at lunch, and it's part of maybe the defining feature of the show. I'm a friendly guy. I love you guys, Parish Orphans and Retrogrades. Thanks for supporting the show. The people that are watching because you're loyal, so I appreciate it. So loyal that we are coming up to 50,000 subscribers, which is, for other people, for panderers, this is nothing. For non-pandering shows, and there aren't that many on YouTube, this is a big deal. So for a show like Patrick Coffin's, remember Patrick Coffin? My friend, he's still out there. He's still making good content. I'm going to talk about him in a second. He was over 100,000 subscribers, and that really meant something. No pandering. Not to this side of the church or this tribe or this clan, not to this tribe. He was just straightforward with what and I talk to Patrick often still, what he thinks is the best estimation of the truth. Well, I don't care. I don't care if they kick me off for supporting, going after the beer bug or the vax hard. I don't care if they say, well, I'm a beneplenist, but I don't support the society. This is just what I believe. So I've always admired that Pat had his channel over 100,000 subscribers. He follows my model. Now, we differ on some positions. He got a lot more sure a lot quicker. I mean, I'm not saying I'm there yet even. That Pope Francis is an anti-pope or was never a pope or whatever. But that's how we follow things. We have 4 pillars on this channel. And the pillars, some of them are more popular than others. But the one is patriarchy. The other is subsidiarity. These are the 2 unpopular ones. Conservatism now ignores subsidiarity and patriarchy, which you need to get each other. Then the more popular ones, when we do shows on the 3rd and the 4th pillar, are easier. Right-wing community organizing. People like when you go after lefties and you use Saul Alinsky's tactics against them. That's the name of the show, Rules for Retrogrades. It's an inversion of Rules for Radicals. That's how we advocate right-wing community organizing. And the other one is don't go to college, homeschool, pull your kids out of the system altogether. And yes, I mean Catholic school system. People like that. For whatever reason, that's really popular. So pillar 3 and 4 are popular. We do shows that are really popular sometimes. But subsidiarity and patriarchy have made us very unpopular with the Catholic mainstream and even with the kind of off-Broadway Catholic mainstream. I'll let you figure out who that is. The off-Broadway, there's Broadway, and then there's the, high-ranking off-Broadway Catholic mainstream. We've pissed a lot of these off, and a lot of these are just fellow podcasters or publishing companies who aren't down fully with the message. So the 50,000 subscriber show to us is a really big deal. We're going to have new technologies involved. You can call in. I'm going to give you a call-in number. That's going to be ready for that show. It's going to be exciting. You could talk to me. You could tell me whatever. It's going to be dope. Call-in show is going to be sweet. That's going to be the first show will be the 50,000 sub show. So get ready for it. It's going to be a big deal. We'll have some guests dropping by. Just friends of the show. Maybe bigger guys, maybe whatever. We'll see. It's a big deal, and it's going to be, we don't know exactly when it's going to hit. It's at 49.6. So it'll be sometime within probably 2 weeks. That show will drop everything, and we'll have it right then. So get ready to call in, get a question ready. A lot of these are questions for Steph about her book, Ask Your Husband. She'll be here. We have a whole kind of new tech setup which enables this stuff. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be really cool. Call in on the 50,000 show. And after that, maybe every other Friday or something, we'll have a call-in show. Call-ins only. Going to be amazing. The second thing, I mentioned Patrick Coffin. In May, he's leading a 3-city European Marian pilgrimage. Starting today, but I'm going to get more specific with how you can do it. I'm going to give you the opportunity to call in and use my name and to be a part of this thing at a sweet rate. Okay? So starting next show, I'm going to get you the specifics on that. But get ready. It's a dope Spanish, Portuguese, French, Marian apparition pilgrimage, and it's going to be amazing. I wish I could go to this thing. But there's another big bit of news. I'm going to be this spring working on the biggest thing yet, with collaborating with close friends of the program. You've seen me collaborate with these people closely before, but never on something this big. It's going to be bigger than my channel. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow the mind of America. And with some of the same folks, I have some related announcements that will be coming out in February and March, probably in February, early February. But the thing I'm most excited about will blow your mind. And it's what's going to occupy all my attention over the next 6 months, or most of my attention over the next 6 months. Can't tell you yet. It's a big deal. Maybe I'll announce it on the 50,000 subs show. That's what I'm hoping to do, is to announce a couple of these big announcements I've been sitting on for 3 months. It's hard for me because I'm a large-mouthed dude. I'm naturally ebullient and expressive. So some of these projects I really wanted to share with you guys. I think I'm going to do that at the 50,000 subs show. It'll be pretty dope. It's hard to get the timing right, people, because you don't know when you're going to hit 50,000 subscribers. I also want to shout out to my boy Sam, who has accelerated the growth of this channel. I said I wanted it big growth, but steady and organic. Sam has made that possible over the last 2 to 3 months. He's re-accelerated our growth. Before we were doing it in punctuated equilibrium bursts. You know, when there was a big issue people trusted me most on, there are 3 or 4 issues people trust me most on. We'll get 50,000 views on a video, and then subscribership will go up by a bunch, but then it levels off. That's because, so thank you, Sam. That's because the viewership of this program, we just checked the analytics, are the highest of any I've ever heard. The subscriber count per video is like 60% plus. YouTubers have never heard this. Most YouTubers go, hey, click that subscribe button, which you should click. If you're not subscribed, please do. But click it, because I'm looking at only 12% analytics showing that 88% of you are not subscribed. That's because the algos by YT are helping them out. The algos are not helping us out at all. Look at what we do. Like I said, Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, patriarchy and subsidiarity, are wildly unpopular, and we're being damaged by the algos, and we don't F around. We tell the truth. I tell the truth. It's only me here on Rules for Retrogrades, but I say we because me and Steph are always sitting here as a kind of team, and I represent not just Case for Patriarchy, but Ask Your Husband too.
And we're the same person.
And we're the same, and we're one flesh. But I mean, we're not getting help by the algos. So you guys are the most loyal audience I've ever heard of, by far. When I came across these analytics with friends of the show who help us do some stuff, we were like, wow. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, but that's a far smaller portion of the retrograde parish orphan audience of any other audience out there. That's wild to be like topping 60% of the people viewing. I don't just mean live views. I mean total views. Viewing, well, 2 out of 3 are subscribed. Definitely subscribe, and you know, it's gonna be a big show. And these announcements are gonna rock thy world when you realize the implications. Also, go to Real Estate for Life. www.realestateforlife.org. Get the hell out of your blue state. Get to a red state today. I suggest the American Southeast, blood red swath of states from Texas to Florida. It's what I did. I lived by it. People listen to me more on Real Estate for Life than anyone. I'm like their biggest advisee, because people know this is exactly what I did. I knew I'd eventually be canceled in California. I was. Peaced out. Took a trip the next week. 8 days later, we're going to Mississippi, Alabama. Find places to stay. Okay, so let's deal with this the Christian way. Today, it's not even really a Catholic-specific show. I'm not trying to be ecumenical. It's just that Protestants are actually, on the whole, when you take a faithful Protestant and you compare a faithful Protestant to a Catholic who's faithful, the Protestant tends to win on this sexism issue. Reverse sexism. Women in politics. More important than that, women outside of the home. Because they're just like, look, this is simple. The New Testament says it in like 8 or 9 places. Like, women need to be quiet, stay in the home, be their husband's helpmeet. You know, women's made after the man. You know, she's made from rib meat, not head meat. Head meat would mean that they're peers. All that stuff. St. Paul says it all over the place. Women need to STFU publicly. That's what he says. Okay? Direct quote. That's actually what he said. Now, I mean, you know what he says. Women need to remain silent. You're not allowed to teach men. Now, they have that. And something about the univocity of Protestant sola scriptura really sticks non-liberal Protestants. It catches in the sticking place, as they used to say. Catholics have that, and we have much more. We have all these patristics. First 8 church doctors each talk about it. Thomas Aquinas makes it so explicit. Read Aquinas, all the scholastics. But Catholic conservatives are just like basically feminists still, which is weird. So you have the Bible and more scriptural exegesis saying, look back at the Bible. Women are really second in rank to men. And Catholics, for whatever, just suck on the issue. So we stumble upon this 2024, halfway to perdition, world is coming apart at the seams situation and wide configuration of events. We're post-beer bug, waiting for the next beer bug. 2024 is weird. We just went through the Republican primary, and 2 of Trump's 3 running mates are women. We're told there, and I don't even care about the guy. Kristi Noem from South Dakota and Nikki Haley from South Carolina. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, this one.
She's the worst. She's the worst person in the world.
We're getting used to some of these new buttons here. Sorry. And it doesn't matter whether I'm talking, Nikki Haley or Kristi Noem. We're talking about women who left their families behind, went into politics, and are so dysphoric that they've thrived there. And you look at the personal lives of these people, and they're a catastrophe. I mean, think about this woman that just a few years back, Amy Coney Barrett, was being hailed as a hero for women. Well, she has 9 children. She has 9 kids she's abandoning every day. Every day. Every night and every day, to go make her the center point of her life, being a Supreme Court justice. And I'm sorry to say, some of you guys supported this, got excited about it. We had Trump, who was signposting her, said this at one point.
It will be a woman, a very talented, very brilliant woman.
Listen to those cheers. Imagine someone saying, let's get Stalin as my running mate. And you hear that cheering noise. Everyone goes nuts. That's chilling. Those are Republicans. They're supposed to be conservatives. So, and I remember the Trump rally, and I think it was New Hampshire. Could have been South Carolina, but I think it was New Hampshire months before that, where he it was like call and response. He was like, who wants a woman? And they did the same thing. And he was like, it's definitely going to be a woman. And then he's throwing back to that here. He guaranteed a woman. And as I mentioned in open, conservatives assume, for whatever reason, I don't know, this is the way that mimesis, herd mimesis works together with your social conditioning, yours. America 2024 social conditioning, the West fell about 100 years ago. It works like this. Mimesis is people copy each other. They want to say something that everyone else is saying. They've been trained carefully to assume that it's beyond the pale to object to any morally sweeping aberrance, anything egregious and horrible. They think it's beyond the pale to object on the basis of conscientious objection. Unless it's like three things. You're allowed to reject like Hitler. You didn't even hear them reject Stalin this way, who's way, 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 way worse. But you're allowed to object to Hitler. You're allowed to object to abortion this way. And I mean that's good. I'm more anti-abortion than anyone. But that got into the Overton window. And a couple other things. And widespread immigration through America First has become really one of the things you're allowed to really hate unequivocally. That's good. Also, like abortion. Thanks to the America First crowd who did that. But we're really crossed up on this female politician issue. All the 20th century popes are like, watch out. Women outside the home, women in the workplace, but Pius X says especially women as leaders. This is the ruin of society. It's a moral evil. Even John Paul II called it a grave moral evil. We're crossed up on that. We can't just say, well, I hate this because it's evil. Even if conservatives or Catholics truly rejected gender dysphoria, they don't. They don't. It's been proven to me time and again in the trad Catholic world, where I'm most associable with the trad Catholic world, but it's feminist, so this has caused big problems there. But even if they did truly reject gender dysphoria, which is a woman thinking she can be a man ergonomically, not just bodily, but ergonomically, they'd feel embarrassed admitting it. Often their objection to the proposition of past and present Nikki Haley's, well, present Nikki Haley's are just called Nikki Haley, but past ones like Sarah Palin or Condoleezza Rice or Amy Coney Barrett. A future one might be Kristi Noem. They might be swapped out soon, and she is one of the leaders. But their objection to the proposition of, I'm just going to call them Nikki Haley's, VP running mates and Supreme Court picks, is a deliberately obscured mishmash of sex-based dog whistling, because conservatives are usually Christian. I mean, they are always Christian, and they know it's wrong, but so they dog whistle it because they have that basic impulse. But it's a mishmash mainly with what they say loudly is the policy agenda misgivings that they have to said woman. Well, Amy Coney Barrett, she supported the stuff that would, by dint of implication, allow forced jabs or something like that. I forget what conservatives who didn't like Amy Coney Barrett but weren't willing to say it's because she's a dysphoric. She's a woman. She thinks she's a man by virtue of the fact that she's went to law school and is in politics. Such conservatives can get away with their barely whispered sexual politics instead of being forced to enunciate it clearly like I'm doing. Don't vote for Nikki Haley because it's most immoral because she's female. They're allowed to because female politicians are secondhand, downstream, by their disordered nature, always going to be such miserable moderates, even the ones that try to sound like a America First, unequivocal kind of dude, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're always miserable moderates at best, or just they make natural leftists in politics. Because the same way, if you asked your, I mean, it's not the exact same way. Dogs don't share in rational animality, right? So they can't, they can't vote, they can't reason at all. All human beings have the specific difference. We are all the same species of rational animality, but there's a grossly different portion share between men and women of rational animality, the species within the genus. So people feel uncomfortable saying, well, I don't want to vote for X woman, even if she's 10 times more conservative than Marjorie Taylor Greene at her best. Because she's a woman. Just say it. Instead, they do this mishmash game where they'll kind of dog whistle it, and then they'll just point out policy agenda. Again, this would be like if you're like, I don't like Stalin, I don't like Hitler, I don't like Pol Pot, I don't know, pick whatever, a ghast-producing 20th century dictator. I don't like him because of the way he does his wash cycle. He washes his darks and his lights together or something. You're like, what? Why would this matter to you? The real reason is because he's a dictator. The real reason you shouldn't vote for Nikki Haley isn't because she's a woman who's bad at politics. It's because she's a woman who's fundamentally disordered to even be trying politics. She belongs in her home, as does, pick your favorite other woman politician, Trump. And Trump's like a boomer. He's a few years older than a boomer, actually. And it turns out they're the worst. They're actually... Which one is it?
She's the worst. She's the worst person in the world.
I promise I'm not, now that I have some new toys to play with, I'm not going to become like an FM shock jock DJ guy. I promise. Okay? You can hold me to that. It is fun playing with these buttons, though. But, I mean, there's something I want to talk about more, and I'm going to talk about it more with some of the announcements that are coming out. Like, you were also lied to about historiography on sex politics. It's a total bullshit lie that second wave feminism entered with like the sexual revolution in the 60s. And you know how you prove it? I mean, you could also just say, well, first wave feminism is bad, and I'm the one that made that popular, and people started copying me in saying that. And that's good. I'm glad they did. Because now it's a popular thing to say, even first wave feminism was bad. But what might be called second wave feminism, doesn't really matter, began far earlier than 1960s. And the way you know is because everybody's grandma, who's like my age, maybe not if you're my grandma's age and you're listening, then your grandma probably wasn't a feminist. But second wave feminism, the really unfettered, unmitigated form of feminism, began long before the 1960s, and that's how you prove it. Trump is like 80, isn't he? Can you get his exact age, Steph? He's like 80 years old. He's a little older than a boomer. So the generation before the boomer is that greatest gen. He's 77. So he might be like the oldest possible boomer. I think he's a cusper. He's on the cusp. He's a cusp between boomer and greatest gen. But even my grandma, who's 10 years older than him, I have a grandma who's 20 years older than him. I have long-living grandparents. Have total elements of feminism. And so does your grandma. Like, if greatest gen were completely previous to second wave feminism, then they wouldn't all be feminists. And you know how I use feminism. I mean, if there's any poison in the cup, it's feminism. But your grandmas aren't going around the way it's commonly portrayed. Old people go around sort of banging their hands on walls and saying, hey, this is wrong. This isn't how it was in my day. They don't do that. They see women in politics. They see women bosses. I had one conversation with one of my grandmas where I was like, oh, I have this female boss. She's so bad. This is like 12 years ago. And she wasn't like, what? There are women in the workplace? They're all hip with it. She's like, oh, I was in the workplace. I could have been a good boss to you. I was like, sorry, Grandma. No offense or anything. Kind of a big position of mine. You couldn't have because you're a woman. And, it would have been trouble. Female bosses are always trouble. And she wasn't like, oh, yeah, that's what I used to think before like 1967, 68. But then I got convinced. She was like, no, I did. She's like, I don't know where you're getting these ideas. I didn't grow up this way. They grew up. And that's my grandma who just turned 100. 100 years old. And they're like as feminist as some woman in the 1970s, which is really the decade when it became super popular for women to go into the workforce. I think, so I mean, this is a historiographical thing. I probably need to do a show on it. But my friend Nick and I always talk about A League of Their Own, Rosie Riveter, all that crap during World War II, which really changed the whole world. It was World War I, World War II, that they changed everything to New World Order. And the most important thing they did, I know you guys want to use like the I word, is, and all that around World War II. But the most important thing they did was the feminism and the Riveter stuff and the give them a women's baseball league. A lot of those women never came home. That's why not just my boomer-aged friends, because I do have friends who are boomers, or my boomer-aged parents or aunts or uncles, but like the generation above them. And I think the generation above them, one of my grandmas is so old, she's almost I think she's a generation older than Greatest Gen. They're all like, yeah, women work. This is what we do. And none of them say I was converted in 1968. They just like, yeah, I was working. A lot of them were working in the 50s. You've been lied to about historiography. So that has a lot to do with this, but it's sort of a tangent. So my job, so what I was saying, the point I was making earlier is that these mishmash, hodgepodge, lukewarm conservatives, there's like 98% of them, and lukewarm trad Caths and lukewarm conservative Caths and lukewarm Christians of all sort, who are more comfortable saying, I don't like Nikki Haley because of these bad policy positions. I guess I don't do it often, but I'm kind of critiquing the LifeSite article I read. Instead of just saying, well, the first reason is don't vote for her because she's a woman. All this other stuff is downstream of that. They're more comfortable dog whistling the stuff they don't feel quite set on, but they know it's wrong. She shouldn't. They know we like Pius X, right? And I think single-handedly repopularized that great Pius X quote. I've repopularized it. Women in Parliament are outside their proper sphere. Go home. And their position there would be the desperation and ruin of society. Literally go home. Amen. Go home and make your home beautiful. And all day long, just be like, hey, how can I make this beautiful? How can I help my husband? How can I, everyone needs a snack. You only eat a sandwich once a day at lunch, but everyone needs a snack. Make lemonade. Beautify the home. Garden, journal, pray more. Stay there, re-beautify. You have to not only beautify, you have to re-beautify several times. We just had our dear friend staying for like 16 days. Steph was just fluttering around, doing her best to beautify. We had a full house. You have to do that even with just having some kids and a husband. Re-beautify several times a day. There's plenty to do. Go do it. Pius X said it, and I repopularized it. Women in Parliament are outside the proper sphere, and their position there would be the desperation and ruin of society. Why is it asking too much to LifeSite News or other more conservative than tepid conservative outfits to just say no to Nikki Haley because she's female? I don't get it. It's literally what all the teachings of the popes confirm. Oh, that was just St. Paul's Day. No. I'm talking about all the 20th century popes. They're desperate not to say it. I read you Pius the 10th. Here's I think this is Benedict 15. With religion's decline, cultured women have lost their sense of shame along with their piety. Many, in order to take up tasks ill-befitting their sex, and he means something less grandiloquent and sweeping than being vice president. He means going into the workforce. Took to imitating men, gender dysphoria. This is not my pet issue. This is the issue of our time. And I'm popularizing it. Others abandoned the duties of wives for which they were formed to be cast into the current of life. I think this is Pius XI. Wifely work, I just have pictures of them. I'm getting them mixed up. Wifely work outside the home. is the debasing of the womanly character and the dignity of motherhood of the whole family, as a result of which the husband suffers the loss of his wife. By the way, this applies even if it's before they've had kids. Don't go work if you're a married woman because the husband suffers the loss of his wife. He's being cucked by the workplace. The kids of their mother, and the home and the family of an ever-watchful guardian. Those are 3 reasons why female politicians need to go the... Where's the beep? We have a beep sound. Go the home, ladies. Go home. Just playing around with them.
Just say the word.
Please. Go the heck home.
Pretty please, with a cherry on top.
Communism, same Pope, is characterized by the rejection of any link that binds women to the family and the home, and her emancipation is claimed as a basic principle. This basic principle is not being rejected. It's being affirmed by conservative outfits like LifeSite that are like, well, we can't say she should go home to be with her husband and kids and home because she's a woman. We have to say she should go home because she has bad policy agenda ideas and keep it divorced from the idea of her sex. Well, you're being a communist. She is withdrawn from the family and the care of kids. The care of the home and kids then devolves upon the collectivity. It's a communist idea. Here's Pius XII. Through going into the workforce, he's not even talking about the absurdism of women in politics. Here's what he says. Has woman's position been thereby improved? And by the way, when did Pius XII's pontificate end? What year? Do you know, Stevie?
Was it 1901?
No, this is Pius XII.
Oh,
1958.
1958.
You're thinking the beginning of Pius X, I think, was 1901. It might be 1902. No, 1958. Do you remember what I said about you being lied to about historiography? That second wave, really aggressive second wave feminism began in between 65 and 70 sometime. Pius XII somehow, did he have a time machine? Did he have an 85 DeLorean? He traveled around in time? Because he's saying this, I don't know what year the quote's from, but it's in the 50s. Women have gone into the workplace, and he says, has woman's position been thereby improved? That's weird. Equality of rights when man brought her abandonment of the home, because she's not man's equal in rank. Can we just say that? Equality of rights when man brought her abandonment of the home, where she reigned queen. So no, it's not wrong for her to be queen of the home. Someone asked about that earlier. And it brought her subjection to the same work strain and hours, entailing depreciation of her true dignity and the solid foundation of her rights, her feminine role. How is Pius XII saying this in 1958 or before? I thought second wave feminism began at the end of the 20th century. No, it began sometime at the beginning of the 20th century. And of course, first wave feminism began in 1848. And it's as bad, I say, but it wasn't as public. So sometimes you'll hear me saying, oh, there are no waves of feminism. All feminism, which began in the 19th century, is evilly wicked, equally evil, rather. But there were waves of its notoriety, of its publicity. And what I'm submitting you today is, how come your grandma, my grandma, is feminist, or most of our grandmas are at least somewhat feminist? Shouldn't they be shocked by this? Like, wait, you have a female boss? How is that? Women can't be the boss of men, and women can't be out of the home. Because second wave feminism began a lot earlier than you've been told. Pius XII continues, we see a woman who, in order to augment her husband's earnings, he's pimping her out. If your wife works, you're pimping her out. She betakes herself to a factory, leaving her house abandoned during her absence. The house, untidy and small perhaps before, becomes even more miserable for her lack of care. And yet we have trad Catholics who want to quibble over whether or not caring for infants in the home is truly a female endeavor. Can you believe that? We have trad Catholics who run major publications, who quibble with Pius XII here. When he says, if we see a woman going to, they might not, some of them might not quibble. They always leave it ambiguous where they are, all these trad Catholics who are feminist. They leave the amount of their feminism a question mark. A lot of them don't have working wives, but a lot of them do. And it's hard to get the numbers. I've been looking at this, and it's very hard to get, and they all kind of camouflage it. But they might not object to the first part of this Pius XII, the second Pius XII statement. I'll repeat it. We see a woman who, in order to augment her husband's earnings, betakes herself to a factory, leaving her house abandoned during her absence. So they might or might not object to that, but they definitely object to Pius XII here when he says, the house, untidy and small perhaps before, becomes even more miserable for her lack of care. Like a lot of these trad Catholics will go, well, why couldn't the husband do it? I mean, yeah, she shouldn't have been working, they might or might not say. But why can't the husband pull his share? Because it's not his job. The oikonomia, the home economy, is all about labor specialization. Care for the home and infants is female, and anything else is dysphoric. Don't tell Amy Coney Barrett. Don't tell Kristi Noem. Don't tell Sarah Palin. Don't tell Nikki Haley. Don't tell her that. She doesn't know. Because no conservatives, even the really conservative rags, don't have the balls to just say it. We don't want to vote for you because you're female. I'll say it. And no, I'm not like it's. And if people ever say this, it'll be like, well, who is the like redneck comedy tour guy? It has to be caricatured. I'm like, I'm an educated guy. Yeah, like Jeff Foxworthy, the guy without sleeves that joined Jeff Foxworthy. Those guys might say it because it's being caricatured. I'm not saying it like that. I have literally 7 kids and a wife. They're my favorite 8 people on the planet. I have very close friendships besides that. But they're my favorite 8, my closest 8. And 7 out of those 8 people are female. They're my favorite. My very favorite is my wife. And guess what? I mean, 7 of those 8 who are female are of a different rank, a totally different strata. Not just because most of them are children, but because they're female. I only have 1 son. Do you get it? Do you guys possibly get how brainwashed you are by Marxists? It's ridiculous. And what we spend our daily hours doing, Nikki Haley, should be sex specific most of the time. Even Vatican II in Gaudium et Spes says this. The kids, especially the younger ones, but not only the younger ones, especially the younger ones. That means the older ones too, but more so the younger ones. So even if your kids are 5 years plus, they're in kindergarten, so now I can go back and help with the earning powers. The kids, especially but not only the younger ones, need the care of their mother at home. This domestic role must be safely preserved. Nikki Haley, Sarah Palin, Amy Coney Barrett, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. How many of these women have been caught cheating or having a divorce or both? Maybe not all of them. But there's a reason the numbers are like through the roof. Why do almost all female politicians cheat? Because they're gender dysphorics. They're a woman trying to be a man. They're disordered. Why is there such a high cheat rate of women who work? Because fundamentally, even if they don't sexually cheat, they're cheating on their role. They might not be cheating on their husband. A lot of them are. An unusually high proportion of them are working on their after-hours boss's yacht. But not all of them are. But all of them are cheating on their role. And those are the ones that aren't even trying to be like girl bosses of society. Those are just ones that are trying to be corporate girl bosses. A lot of trads talk smack on Pope Paul VI. He's not my favorite pope either. Maybe the worst pope of the 20th century. But listen to what he says. Even in the glorified state, that means whatever, there's pre-lapsarian, before the fall, post-lapsarian, and then post-heaven. Even in heaven, in the glorified state, in humans, the difference of sex exercises an important influence, much deeper than ethnic differences. This is great. The difference between male and female is much, 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 much more inherently important than the difference between black and white. The latter do not affect the human as intimately, he's talking about ethnic differences, as the difference between sexes. The effect of God's will from the beginning. Male and female, he created them. Don't expect females to be able to do male things, namely work outside the home, lead anything. Shouldn't be leading the family. They can't. Shouldn't be leading a congressional subcommittee, of course. But at a middle level, shouldn't be leading at work. Shouldn't be at work. Shouldn't be like, oh, head up this project. My project leader is Susan. She's really talented. She's so talented. What did Trump say?
It will be a woman, a very talented, very brilliant woman.
What's wrong with these people? What was wrong in the middle 20th century, early and middle 20th century? I'm really asking, what's wrong with him? A very brilliant, very talented woman. Is Trump conservative at all? I mean, yeah, I'm probably going to end up voting for him. I don't get these people. I don't get conservative. I don't get Catholics. I don't understand. Something I can't understand is people that care about doing what's popular. I don't understand it. And I'm not saying, look, I could say something that I know is popular right now. You know, pull your kids out of the schools, homeschool. That's very in right now. And I've been saying it for a while. I'll still be saying it. See, if someone's a contrarian, that means by their constitutional nature, they're incapable. They have some weird foible. They can't be doing something once other people start doing it. Look, I'm proud. I'm happy everyone got this, started getting this right. Pull your kids the hell out of Catholic school and bring them home. Don't send them to any schools. Have your wife stay there and teach them, and you need to help teach them too. That's great that that's popular. So I'm not a contrarian. Don't call me a contrarian. I like that that's popular. But I don't get the opposite extreme. Most people, their mimetic desire, their desire to do what is a meme. I don't get it. I feel like an alien looking in sometimes. Some of these other Catholic podcasts, I don't know what Matt Fradd or Trent Horn would say if you were like, okay, what's the best reason not to vote for Nikki Haley? They won't talk about it. I'm saying I don't know what LifeSite News, more conservative Catholics would say. That article suggested they left a conspicuously absent element, a deafening silence on the best reason not to vote for Nikki Haley or Kristi Noem or any of these ladies, broads, that they're female. But definitely, I don't know for the life of me what a Matt Fradd or a Trent Horn, both of whom have quibbled with me and with Steph on sex politics somewhat famously over the last 5 years. I don't know what they would say, but I know they're reasonably smart guys. I don't know what any of these sort of, normie conservatives would say if you ask them, okay, if you cut my job is to flush the right-wing misgivings about female politicians to the fore. They're bad not because of weak policy positions. They're bad because they're female politicians. Okay, I'm saying that, and I'm not saying it like Jim Bob or whatever, the redneck comedy guy. I'm an educated guy with lots of degrees. I don't even talk about this stuff. I'm trying to make it palatable for the masses, not by ripping my sleeves and being redneck Jim Bob, because that caricatures it. That's the only way that the proposition's allowed to be enunciated. They marginalize it. If you say, hey, we don't want women politicians, it's because your sleeves are ripped. I'm an educated guy with more degrees than everybody out there. But I don't brag about that at all because I don't even think it's something to brag about. My fourth book is called Don't Go to College. I think it's a waste of time. But I am credentialed. And when push comes to shove, I'm connected to propositional logic and in making arguments that are modally structured, that are syllogistically structured. I'll make arguments that beat anybody that says otherwise when it comes to women in the public sphere. So I'm not Jim Bob, and I'm saying women politicians are bad not because of their weak policy positions, which do have to do with their femaleness, but in the first place, they're bad because they're female. I just read you like 6 or 7 20th century popes in Vatican II saying as much. I read you Pope Pius X saying it's the ruin of society if we even were to elect one female to the legislature. We already have tons in Congress. That's not a LARP, and that's not from a different era. That's from the era that housed medicine in Major League Baseball. You can go look up who was the leading slugger in the MLB when all of those popes were saying all those things about women should not be in politics. They shouldn't be out of the home. That's from our era. Sports were being broadcast on the radio or television. Okay? That's my job. I don't know, because of the argument due to silence, what any of these conservatives, more or less normie, more or less further to the right, would say, because they simply leave the space blank because they're afraid, because of mimetic desire. This is the issue they won't touch. Female politicians are bad because female, but even if hypothetically not, even if we could imagine a perfect platonic form, otherwise perfect platonic form of politician who's female, if she's female, she's fundamentally immoral because she's gender dysphoric and confused and outside the home. Okay, so that's it. What their line of logic tends to go like, and then I'm going to close this, is that stay-at-home wives are good for most conservatives. They'll admit this. Stay-at-home wives are good. Cool. Nikki Haley and Kristi Noem, therefore, are at least somewhat bad. And so they'll try to pick secondary or tertiary or quaternary reasons why they're bad because they don't want to be a pariah. These conservatives who know that it's bad for them to be outside their home, to abandon their husband, probably end up in compromising situations just by virtue of being in the public. But they'll come up with the secondary and tertiary reasons because they don't want to sound mean. They don't want to say too much truth before other people are saying it. They'll say other truths once other people are saying it. Just go watch Matt Fradd's show on the female feminism intersexuality question. It got really popular in 2023 to say. Daily Wire started making it popular. Pearly things started making it really popular. And obviously, I have a close connection to both those outfits. Close causal connection. But they didn't want to say it before then, and it's still in the realm of the gray. It's not quite clear whether conservatives are going to re-embrace, to return, RETVRN, to truth on the most important political, socio-cultural issue, the single-cell society, intersexuality, men-women dynamics. Are women going to go back to the home? It's still gray, even though it got much more easy to talk about in the year 2023, in summer. Last summer, got blown wide open. But it's still gray, so people, most conservatives, most Christians know that stay-at-home wives are good, and they know that Amy Coney Barrett and Kristi Noem and Nikki Haley are not good that way. But because of, boom, egalitarianism, you still have to talk about men and women like we're the same thing. We're not. We're radically different. Radically different. They haven't yet addressed that Marxist monument, gotten it out of the blood. And therefore, when they talk about why Nikki Haley is so bad, it's because it's got to be these normies will reason. It's got to be using at most a kind of dog whistle to the badness of leaving her husband and her home abandoned, being pimped out for the sake of society. And they instead just point out policy positions where she's misstepped to say she's bad. That's stupid. That's stupid. Even good politicians have made some errors. No politician has 100% perfect credit ranking with like the platonic form of conservatism. So you could do this to any good politician. Pick your favorite politician ever, and they're going to have some slip-ups. That's all this Lifestyle News article was doing, and they're probably my favorite rag to go to, so I was disappointed. Here's why Nikki Haley's bad. You could pick 3 or 4 things that even a good conservative, a good male conservative who belongs in politics, unlike females, would do. And they're treating, here are all the best reasons. And then the number one, really the only reason why you shouldn't vote for any of these dames is that they're female. It's conspicuously absent. It's a deafening silence. I'm sick of it. Parish orphans and retrogrades, I am so world weary. And yet that's why we try to focus on the positive. I'm so sick of the post-conciliar reforms. I'm so sick of this pope. I'm so sick of American politics and jokers being hailed as heroes like Trump, who says,
it will be a woman, a very talented, very brilliant woman.
That's like the panacea for conservatives in 2020. That's the highest and best we can do. The guy that gave us Amy Coney Barrett as a woman and is saying, I like the concept of female vice president. That means qua concept, this is a good idea. But we got to pick the best. Look at all the buts. I like the concept of female vice president, but we got to pick the best. But I do like the concept, yes. So you see this is how politics works, man. And I'm just sick of it. I like A, but A prime, but I like A. It's a contradiction sandwich. I like the concept of female vice. This is literally the quote. It's a sandwich. I like the concept of female vice president, but we're going to pick the best. But I do like the concept. Bread, meat, bread. Identity politics, identitarianism. We should get a blank VP. But we're going to do merit, which would preclude women from this realm. But identity politics is the other bread on the bottom. That's how you have to talk if you want to get big. And I like from the very outset, when you started hearing me talk, you the first year and a half you heard me talk, it was on Taylor Marshall's channel. I was like, look, man, I just want to grow organic. I don't want to be a captive creator. A captive creator is someone that has to do like Trump. He's supposedly the straight shooter. You have to say, look, I like the concept of identity politics, but identity politics are bad. But I like the concept of identity politics. And you're like, what the hell are we supposed to do? We're supposed to infer that, well, he said identity politics twice at the beginning and the end as bookends, and he said identity politics is bad in the middle, 2-1. Therefore, I guess he meant the thing he said twice instead of its opposite, which he only said once. That's the language that you guys have come to expect because that's the language that everyone uses. And no, Catholics aren't different. That's why, like, hitting 50,000 subs for us is very exciting. It's genuinely exciting. Like, I'm not bitter about it, but it does stand like a kind of monument of its own. And I'm like, that means something. 50,000 subscribers, other people are like, whoa, I want to get to 100. No, I'm really proud of that because we're building by saying, these are my show notes. I'm saying the things on this show. And not going so far that we're going the red pill way and saying women are inherently good. Women are awesome. I tell the red pill guys, I was like, dude, you're black pilled, man. Women are awesome. Marriage is awesome. You just have to be leaders, man. Oh, all women are blah, blah, blah. And they say bad words and stuff about women. No, you just have to lead them. That's what they turn into all those things that are unseemly. You know, cheaters and disloyal and skanks and all that. Only if not led. Beautiful, beautiful life one can have. This is why the red pill's totally wrong. It's vile, disgusting, tells men to be lower than the beast. It takes the feminists at their word and then copies them. So don't get married, lower the birth rate. Sex is for pleasure. That's the red pill. Because conservative men are not hearing the truth. They're not hearing the truth from Christians. You hear it a few places among Orthodox, like the Wilsons. You hear it a few places among Protestants, like actually Doug Wilson. The Protestant, I meant Andrew and Rachel Wilson. You hear it from Doug Wilson, the Calvinist preacher, and some other places like that. You hear it almost nowhere in Catholicism. Catholicism is the most riddled with it. And I'm the biggest voice pushing it in Catholicism. And because I'm the most mainstream voice pushing it in Catholicism, and I've been intentionally pushed out of the mainstream by both the Broadway people and the off-Broadway people, it's not a big part of conservatism. So you know what conservatives sound like when they talk about intersexuality? They sound like red pill. They go to the red. They think Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's a feminist. Andrew Tate says, don't get married, lower the birth rate, use contraception. Women should work and help the home place if you do live with your girlfriend. They're feminists. They're pathetic. But a lot of the people that submit, I'm not talking about like Andrew Tate pimping out intersexuality. I'm talking about a lot of the impressionable, mostly innocent listeners of Andrew Tate. They would definitely be, they have their ears out for the truth. They're just not hearing it anywhere. Rachel and Andrew Wilson and Doug Wilson and Tim and Steph Gordon are being shoved out of the mainstream. This is what I try to tell Proly things. We talk semi-frequently. And I'm like, look, the red pill is the false path. That's feminism. Patriarchy. I don't even know if the red pill guys object to female politicians. It's pathetic. But that's why we offer you good content here. So if you want to support the channel, like and subscribe, even though we have the highest subscriber count of anyone I know, super loyal audience. But do like this video. Do subscribe if you're not. There are 30% of you or so that are not subscribed. The analytics tells. And you do have to give to it. We got kicked off of Patreon for truth telling this time of the year last year. Locals and Subscribe Star is where you can do it. And if you want to donate to the man and his family, that's different. Go to timothyjgordon.com and click donate. Like this video, people. 50,000 subscriber show is going to be dope. It's going to be fun. The 4 pillars of this channel: subsidiarity, patriarchy, right-wing community organizing, re-education, going back the new old way. Are you going to hit something? I thought you were going to hit something. Steph.
Go out on Dear Siri.
What?
I said you go out on Dear Siri.
Desvolt people, I love you guys. I really do appreciate you guys.